the last word, if you can see, sustainable manner. That
Yes.
word
Yes.
need to be revisited when
Okay.
we go for future negotiations.
Okay.
But now this is a long thing.
Yeah.
Because now many countries are asking themselves, what is sustainable in South Sudan?
Yes.
And what is sustainable in Kenya?
Yes.
What is sustainable in Uganda?
Yes.
So that's why you see technical organizations
Yeah.
like IFPRI, for example. For
Yes.
them, they are saying, why don't we say without degrading the environment and natural resources? Instead of saying sustainable manner.
Oh,
So
okay.
those words with time,
Okay.
I think they.
Okay.
So you can do your things, you ensure food and nutrition security without
Yes.
degrading the environment and natural resources. But that is for your future negotiation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And changing that word can take 10 years. Okay,
Thank you.
proceed.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the next part of my comment is to do with the National Climate Change Action Plan. I have perused the document, Mr. Chair, and I have noted that there is clear reference to National Climate Change Action Plan. There is also clear reference to District Climate Change Action Plan. However, one would say that the lead agencies are supposed to, I think just like we have given an example of agriculture, where we have the agriculture sector national adaptation plans.
Just a moment. Members,
Okay.
welcome for tea.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
Yeah, thank you. Where we have the national, let me say the agriculture sector national adaptation plan. We have, of course, developed even the long-term carbon and climate resilient agricultural development pathway for the sector. As a lead, I don't know, maybe I don't understand the word lead agency. Perhaps if I don't, you'll help me to understand it, if it is a misunderstanding. But I was thinking that in addition to the districts, I'm not seeing action plans for lead agencies in this document. And that means that we will continue talking because the actual implementation is done by the lead agencies, the sectors. Because if I do not make a deliberate effort to plan and make sure that agriculture has those specific technologies that are climate smart, it is going to be very difficult for the ministry to put in its national plan such an arrangement. And therefore, my concern was that how come that ministries like energy, water, and environment, water is the host, but energy, works, and others, how do they get their plans? How do they get their acts? And therefore, my proposal is that the bill should specifically make reference to lead agency climate change action plans. Although there is a national, which obviously they all contribute to, but my thinking is that in order for us to propel implementation, let us realize that if we are talking about improving biogas, we cannot leave out the Minister of Energy. And the activities have to be done at that level. If they are done by the climate change department, they will be very tiny, small projects, which will not be integrated within the government systems. And so I find that there is a gap where we are talking about national and district plans. But my view is that the lead agency plans and the national plans should actually should feed into the national national plan. So I find that there is a gap, and I really think that maybe we need to consider that in order to emphasize implementation of climate resilient investments and actions. It is the sectors that should go into that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. But on the other side,
yes,
if we, Minister of Agriculture is making action plan for Lake Victoria, which is its fisheries, Lake Victoria falls
Yes.
under Minister of Agriculture. In the district plan, which district will make plan for Lake? Because this is a cross.
yes, yes.
It's across many districts, the lake. So the district may not be in good capacity to actually do a very good action plan for Lake Victoria. Do you see that one also? Maybe it is the lead agency, the ministry, to
Exactly.
help the district.
There is a level of projects that the district cannot plan because they cover a broad sort of an ecosystem with many districts. And I agree with you. That is one of the reasons why we
need a lead agency action plan.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm also getting it wrong that in my view, district plan brings together the lead agencies within the district so that they contribute from their respective sectors and eventually form an integrated district plan. That to me was what I am looking at, my understanding of a district plan. That is not specific to only one sector, but the one that integrates all the other sectors and then it becomes a whole district action plan. I don't know. That was my thinking.
I not got that one properly because a lead agency is a ministry, a department, or local government,
Yes.
or agency of government,
Yes.
which is responsible for undertaking response measures for climate change in accordance with this Act and the National Climate Change Policy. So what we are saying is
At the district level.
at the district level,
Yes.
they should work together with all
The other sectors.
Yes, and the way it looks,
and I think they do that. They love to work with
they
all
are supposed to set up a district climate change committee.
Yes.
I've seen it somewhere.
Yes.
And then they are supposed to work with that committee to
when they are
develop
making the action plan.
Yeah, when they are developing the action plan.
And then the same thing at the national level. They will work with all the other lead agencies when they are making the national action plan. Or each lead agency will make it individually.
The issue is in the district climate change action, when they're coming up with this district climate change action plan.
Yes.
Of course, the district has different departments.
Yes,
For
yes.
instance, environment.
Yes.
there's,
Natural resources, water.
Yeah.
Those things which like the leading is talking about energy.
Yes.
Water and environment, those things. So his suggestion is that when these other departments are contributing to the district climate action plan,
Committee.
they have they are cascading the sector. Like the ministry.
From the lead agencies, yes.
The sector plans.
Yes.
For instance, agriculture, maybe energy. They are cascading it to
The lower level.
integrated into the action plan. So is there still like relevance of including other lead agencies, like a clause, like you suggested?
Yeah. The lead agency which would focus on, okay, now, because what I'm seeing here is that the districts are also lead agencies, the local government.
The local
Yes,
government.
yes.
But, so instead of calling it a district climate change action plan,
Yes.
perhaps it should be called the lead agency, whatever action plan, so that it includes even the sectors, if that is what they wanted to imply. Otherwise, I would also appreciate separating the district because of its level of operation from the other lead agencies who are operating at a higher level, because they have a bigger outlook of the entire national challenge, with a specific focus on the issues relating to their sector and their mandate. So my thinking is that we should recognize that intermediate level between the national and the like, because how do you implement the national is through the lead agency plans, which include the national sector issues and also the districts, the district local government. So I was thinking that, and why is this important? You see, this is the implementation of this whole thing. Implementation is in the action plans, and how you make them relevant but also effective in mobilizing stakeholders is critical for us to deliver this bill to its implementation. And so my thinking is that there is a gap. The district is taken care of, but now what about the other lead agencies who are not operating at the district level? Like the ministries. Especially we have mentioned agriculture, we have mentioned some other departments, for example, we have energy. It's a very important actor. We have works. There are some aspects of works, emissions, transport. You know, how do you cannot expect a district. You cannot expect the district to take into account emissions of traffic without referring to the national to the works. That sector must have some contribution to how are we planning transport in the next 5 years to make sure it works well. Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure how this will be managed, but I'm pointing out the gap that we must try to address it in the bill, and see how best we can do that.
And then we shall
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as I mentioned, this is work in progress. I received a last-minute comment, which is not in what I've presented. But I wanted to raise it also because it came and someone brought it. It is 13. It is Article 13, I think. Subsection 1A. Mr. Chair, the statement here is ensure that Uganda meets her obligations under the convention, its protocols, and agreements. Now, I think one of our colleagues was thinking that how do we ensure that that this responsibility goes as far as ensuring that Uganda also benefits from international cooperation under this convention. The obligation we have is they tell us we are supposed to do certain things.
Yeah.
We are supposed to report, we are supposed to do certain implementation and the like. But we are also supposed, this is an agreement where it is a give and take. And the effectiveness of its implementation is to what extent are we making our responsibilities fulfilled, and to what extent are we making the other partners also meet their obligation. And my thinking is that that is to do with really ensuring that the international obligations of other responsible parties are also taken into account. And my thinking is that here, for Uganda, is how do we ensure that we benefit from the international cooperation out of this convention? We are saying that we should ensure that we meet our obligations in this convention and its protocols and agreements. What we are supposed to do. But how do we ensure that we benefit from what other people, because we are a least developed country which is entitled to JEF funds, for example, GCF funds, and also bilateral funds to help us implement these activities in the action plans that we do. We do our reporting, we enact laws like we are doing. This is our obligations. But now there is another part. How are we saying that the climate change department will not facilitate that part?
So are you suggesting we add another?
Yes, and I think we need to look at an international cooperation and the international and the associated international cooperation, because we need to bring in a commitment that this department will ensure that we meet our obligation, but also that we benefit from the international cooperation.
We benefit from the international.
Yes, but the language should be very. I don't know whether our colleagues, the legal drafters, might have some points how to frame it, but I think there is. Here we are. It is okay. It is a national law, but we are committing a national institution which is responsible for an international obligation, an international instrument, which has obligations, but also it has other commitments from other parties, which should favor our efforts. So I just wanted to. That is a point. I do not have it documented, but someone sent me some information and says that we should include that as well. So that is number 13. Mr. Chair, I would like to move now to 16. Is it 16? 14. Okay.
But now, before we go,
Yes.
when you look at 13.2, in the performance of its function under subsection 1, where we have included the benefit from international cooperation, have we defined, do we need to also, the department shall, do we need to specify also another function now there in relation to reaping benefit from international cooperation? Because it's like the ABCD we have under the 2 are more related to the AB in 1. So as we inserted the reaping benefit from international cooperation, do we also need to put some function along that line?
Yes, and Mr. Chair, you know that from what I've seen in this document, it hasn't referred much to the negotiation process. And yet we know that it is through those negotiations that we are able to interact with those partners and mobilize that international support. And that means there should be some elements that come out. Although I would suggest to make this stronger nationally, we should not separate that as an objective. It should be part of the first objective. In other words, we should start with the commitment of our obligations, and then we also include the international cooperation, in that international cooperation. But when we are elaborating actions, we should then include those specific ones.
Because when you look at A up to J,
yes,
it is more on meeting our obligations.
yes,
But there is nothing
yes.
meant
There is
to
nothing meant
mention
with
for
taking
reaping
advantage of
benefits.
international,
Yes.
you
So
know,
do we need to
cooperation.
include something
Yeah.
like that? Maybe J.
Yeah. For example, like hosting international events, like the one we were about to host until COVID came in. What was it? The Climate Week. Those are some of them, and then also the other elements of mobilizing partnerships, resources, technology, transfer, and all these other things. But I think the people concerned will find a way of putting that very well. Yes.
Okay. Yes, you can proceed.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the other point is number 14. Mr. Chair, I have noted that the bill talks about annual reports. And I had two elements here, Mr. Chair. One is that reporting is a good way of updating and also facilitating decision making. And my thinking here is that the reporting reporting that informs decision making requires data and information. Mr. Chair, considering that climate change is a national matter which should be integrated or mainstream in almost all the lead agencies or sectors and districts, it will be extremely complicated for us to collect information and data with a view to report every year. Mr. Chair, my view is that we should give a provision for an annual brief and also have what we call a biannual report, which is comprehensive and has data and information and can actually report on some level, not too much, but some level of impacts of what has happened. If we are talking about irrigation, for example, to facilitate, to mitigate a drought, we should be able to tell that we have put in place so many solar pumps in so many of these districts. And it is easy, in 2 years you can do an inventory and find out how much have we been able to do. But in 1 year it is too close. In other words, there are two elements. There is what we would call the progress indicators, and then what we would call the impact indicators. My thinking is that we can make a report on the progress indicators as an annual process, where we prepare a brief on what progress we are making, what activities, what workshops have taken place, what awareness has been done. But then when it comes to the concrete, on the ground investments that have impact on changing the resilience and the changing mitigation, it may require a study, it may require data collection, it may require compilation, and my view is that it should have, at least we should give a two-year period to make this effective, and to make sure that we do not receive shallow reports from the department, which all the time we are sending back, but we are sending a report which we think is comprehensive, and they have had enough time to prepare it. They have had enough time to reach all the actors and stakeholders, and that when it comes, it can facilitate decision making. And so my view was that we should be able to provide the suggestion that we've had is that we can have maybe we can have an annual brief, but also we have a biannual report, which is comprehensive. And my thinking is that work in progress can be reported, but a comprehensive report can be done in 2 years. But although, in my view, the annual brief, in my view, it is more like an option. If you insist that there must be a report each year, it can be an option that, well, we can have a brief on on progress, a brief on progress every let me say every yearly between the biannual reporting, something like that. So that is the point that we have on Article 14. I think I didn't record this very well. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I turn now to Article 16 with respect to the lead agencies. Yeah, Mr. Chair, we looked at subsection 2 with B1, which is talking about undertake vulnerability and impact assessment, including baseline vulnerability and risk adaptive capacity. And now I added in and technology needs assessment, because, Mr. Chair, we must appreciate that technology is what will move us forward. It is what will bring agro-processing. It is what will bring less carbon emissions. It is this technology that we need, and if we do not assess what is the technology that is needed, this is what we are calling the so-called assessments that we are doing will be for social reason, to know how many people are starving, to know how many, but that is not going to help us. We need to know what are the technologies we need to use in order to solve our problems, in order to improve our efficiency in production. And so I just wanted that this addition is added. Technology needs assessment is added. It could be added where it is, or it could be added as appropriate. And secondly, Mr. Chair, I also looked through the elements which are mentioned following that one. And my observation is that one of the things that we must consider, that lead agencies must consider, is really to enhance the development and dissemination of technologies and practices for climate change adaptation. I missed out the word practices after technology in number 2. The point here is that we are saying that one of the ways we can defeat climate change impacts is by riding on those technologies that deliver, that make us more resilient. And my view is that we must also look at how we develop and disseminate or popularize, whatever the case may be, these technologies. And I noted that it is missing out there. The other thing is, if we are talking of lead agencies, they have budgets. How do we ensure that they are actually mainstreaming climate change? Without them providing any allocation or even mobilizing any resources to that extent. So my thinking is that these are some of the indicators that how much have you allocated to climate change? What activities have you allocated for climate change in your budget? Because this is what will help us to appreciate that, yes, I think this sector is doing a lot. They have put money, but of course they are putting money on their own budget, on their own activities, but they are focusing on those climate change drivers. So I don't know whether this makes sense, but our view is that the lead agencies must do, because it says build the economic and social resilience to climate change for the fragile ecosystems, communities, and concerned persons by. If we don't allocate resources for investments, shall we be doing much? I don't think so. And so my thinking is that we will look at agriculture as they plan. How much money are they putting on supporting irrigation units on the ground? How much are they supporting the establishment of maybe what we are calling agro-processing plants for some cooperatives or what? How many are they, budgeting for, investing in? How many projects are including those things in their plans and budgets? How many projects among they have are addressing climate change issues? So the allocation of those resources can be a measure on how you assess the performance of this sector or this lead agency. So my view is that these should also be included within that area. Yeah, Mr. Chair. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, if that is agreed, I would really say that our request in this particular case of this bill is one to ensure that food security is taken into account and is mentioned as an area that should be taken into account in this bill, so that alongside with other general elements like gender, human rights, capacity building, which have been mentioned, food security is a key concern which we feel should also be mentioned. Secondly, we also consider that the reporting should, if as far as possible, take into account progress and impact indicators, and the time frame should be accordingly provided for, giving more time for the reporting on the impact indicators, and real data and information must be part of such a report. And we are, in our view, we recommend that we have an annual brief, but also we have a biannual report for which is comprehensive and has adequate data and information, if possible, from all actors. And then we are looking at the other element, which we have said is the leading agencies should have work plans. Annual. They call them climate change action plans, which are separate from the national and from the district. This is because of their role in implementation is very important. It is the first step in transforming the national plans into towards implementation. The activities must be elaborated in more detail by sector, by lead agency. and then they go to the district. My thinking is that this is, for us, it is very important to ensure that implementation is effective, and it is well guided, and it is well planned. And also more actors are engaged in the action planning process.
That's why we were saying these other lead agencies,
Yes.
ministries,
Yes.
they needed also to come up with their national adaptation plan. For now, we have it only in agriculture.
Yes, yes,
So that we
yes.
can have a document like
Yes,
this, which
yes.
we call the National Adaptation Plan for
Yeah.
Uganda.
Yes.
In
But we
it,
have a sector one.
We have the one for agriculture,
Yes.
for health.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's.
So that's what we are saying. We need the sector plans to come out, because it means our agriculture sector NAP is illegal. It's not recognized anywhere, you know, which is unfair, because it is the basis for us to focus on agriculture. How do we integrate climate adaptation? So I think that's very important for us to consider. And then, of course, we have also said that among other measures that lead agencies should carry out is we have included the technology needs assessment, and also the need to enhance the development and dissemination of appropriate. There is no word appropriate in what I've said, but I think let us bear in mind that this language is a common word, appropriate, but you can choose whatever. The most important thing is technology. Appropriate technologies and practices for climate adaptation. We must ensure that we give them the responsibility to focus on that, because the technologies is what is the implementation. Implementing technologies and practices is the actual implementation, and lead agencies should spell out these. They should also budget for them. They should plan for them. And then the other issue we mentioned is the one relating to resources, how they will also be, they should also allocate resources for investments in these areas. So we are looking at the other element we mentioned is to do with the addition of international cooperation on how. I'm not really. I hope you got my point, because I'm not sure the language I've given you is the right language, but I hope you can appreciate the point that we want. So, Mr. Chair, I think I will stop here, and perhaps I must say that these are preliminary indications of what has been assessed, in view of the fact that not everybody was able to look at this in the short time we have seen this document.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It is good and it's technical. And one thing I noticed, Uganda agriculture, where you say Uganda's agriculture is highly vulnerable to climate change, and you mentioned a number of issues on page.
Yes.
Yeah, a number of issues dominated by smallholder farmers and so on and so on. Let me hope Minister of Agriculture is addressing these things in the projects, the activities. But now when money comes and then it is allocated to other things, when the problems are this, then we cannot help to address climate change in the country. Because now when you talk about largely rain-fed agriculture, we expect now Minister of Agriculture to be doing irrigation, so that we stop rain-fed agriculture. When you talk about poor land management practices, the projects and activities should be doing in Ministry of Agriculture is sustainable land management.
Yes. Yeah.
For land fragmentation, we should be now advocating for land consolidation.
Yes.
And then the drivers of deforestation, of course, first of all, the drivers of deforestation can only be done by creating alternatives.
Yeah.
If I'm cooking with charcoal and firewood and you tell me now use that music electricity, you give me alternatives. So these drivers, but at the same time projects can be in area of conservation, tree planting and reforestation. And then the limited agro-processing capacity. See how these issues are cross-cutting. You cannot do any agro-processing if you don't have access to cheap and strong electricity.
Exactly.
If you don't have transport for perishable goods so that they can reach the market quickly, and if you don't have storages for post-harvest handling. So these are some of the challenges. So we really expect these problems should have solutions, and the solutions should be seen in these ministries. Even here in Parliament, during the year you will hear people talking about floods and so on and so on. When money comes like this, they forget that there was floods. They now say we have to recapitalize Bank of Uganda. For what? So that's where we go wrong. That's where we go wrong. You start allocating money to other things and you forget the problems. So we really expect these practices to be in the ministry. But thank you for your good presentation. And maybe the members, we have two honorable members here. They can also, they may be having input. But first you introduce yourself. Because of Mr. Moore, I will not be knowing you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry for coming late. My name is Oseko Richard, Member of Parliament, Kibale County and Parisa District, and a member of this committee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bamba Sabete, the district woman representative in the district.
Sorry? Which one? Rukunjiri. Okay.
I'm a member of this committee. And right, thank you very much for your presentation and for what you are writing. Especially on the climate change, socio-economic impacts. Now that we are in the era of securing our future, when I looked at number 2, first of all, food insecurity, hunger and malnutrition is climate change. I would have loved to hear you telling us how would you want us, the bill, much as we secure the funds or we look for the funds at the ministry, how would you like the bill that we are making address such issues? Or if the bill is not coming up as a Minister of Agriculture, because you know that with food insecurity, we cannot grow. The new generations will, of course, not grow effectively. And when we come up with bills, when we still have these challenges, the bills, the good thing with us Ugandans, we make them and keep them under our drawers. Then we keep doing other things. When the locusts come, we run to that. When the floods come, I stand on the floor of Parliament, you start to address the floods in one sub-county in Rukunjiri. Then the following week, it will come in Parisa. Another week, it will go to Kasese. I think it would be much better that we consolidate, since we have known that climate change is a cross-cutting issue. As ministries, you come up with proper strategies to address this, because it is affecting everyone, me and you inclusive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And in addition to that, when you were talking about the impact of climate change in Uganda, you gave us very good data here. 800 hectares of crop each year is lost. And then the floods of 98, 97 caused damage worth $2.7 million US. What in coffee alone.
Yeah.
But there is also the issue of coffee sector going to suffer because of climate change, people are moving towards the top of the hill. because they have to look for that weather where coffee can thrive. And because of climate change, they are moving toward the mountain. Time is coming when they will reach the top of the mountain. What will happen to coffee? That is very important for the people who are planning, because shall we say now, Uganda, we have now reached the top of the mountain, so we cannot produce coffee anymore. The research is very clear. If you go to Mount Elgon, people are going towards the top of the mountain. Then, between 2000 and 2013, 907 million US dollars lost, and 2008, 47 million US dollars. So you can see the damage, the losses, compared to the money we invest. Sometimes we borrow, and yet we can prevent these losses, and we borrow little. So these are the things we need to use for awareness to the decision makers. It is really very important. So how much money is borrowed to invest in agriculture? And when you invest, how much do we lose again? So no country moving along that trend can develop. No country can develop unless we address those challenges. So the coffee sector is going to suffer since we are moving towards the top of the mountain. Time will come when we shall reach the top, and then there will be no more coffee in Uganda. So we must address that early enough. And then when you look at the situation is even worsened by this COVID.
Exactly.
Because of COVID now, mobility is restricted, and because of low mobility, it has affected the agricultural food chain. It is also disrupted, labor is disrupted, price is disrupted, raw material supplies all disrupted, and we are losing a lot of money actually. We are becoming food insecure, and we are losing a lot of money because we cannot do business. So now, these pandemics will continue. I mean, even if we finish COVID, others may come. So we need to have that kind of preparedness, even in agriculture. So it will affect our GDP, and so we need to really prepare in all sectors of the economy if we are to really address them, and especially this one, which is cross-cutting. So we want to thank you for your comments. So thank you for your time. If we need more information, definitely we shall still get back to you. But also the documents you have, if you can have copies of them here.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.